You must have been living under a rock if you never heard, read, or came across people pushing PC politics, claiming that some phrases should be avoided and certain words must be banned. The given reasons are usually because these words and/or phrases are racist, because they are sexist, because it's Islamophobia or homophobia, because they might be discouraging, or just because they are offensive to some people for a whole variety of reasons. And if we wish to fight all those things, then we should constrain the way we express ourselves. We live in an age where many people put a lot of emphasis of being perceived as enlightened, as tolerant to all races, genders, ethnic groups, sexual orientations, and every minority you can think of. In essence, to be perceived as progressive humanists that wish to make the world a better place for all of humanity. A noble idea that almost everyone can subscribe to. But what happens when you turn this notion into an ideology? An ideology on steroids, where the will to create a better world, a more tolerant world, outweighs all other considerations and turns from a matter of courtesy and awareness into a practice. A practice to obsess about relentlessly, with a sort of religious fanaticism. This is where the quite ironic term zero tolerance to intolerance comes from. And other similar terms like zero tolerance to violence, where the term zero tolerance by itself contains some form of violence. This is probably the best example when describing the term doublethink, the acceptance of two mutually contradictory beliefs as correct, and in this case, with such a concise sentence. It's almost art. For many people and many institutions nowadays, the main way to fight racism and bigotry is to force the practice of politically correct speech and thought.
Don't call them freshmen any longer because it's no longer politically correct. Huh? Elon University is now banning that word from students' vocabulary because it's now considered sexist, apparently.
France may change the words mother and father in official documents, replacing it with the word parents.
Let's just ban the word bossy.
Let's ban bossy.
Ban bossy.
Lauren Conrad is banning body-shaming words from her website. Starting this month, terms like skinny, slim, and thin will be replaced with words like fit, toned, and healthy on the lifestyle site.
But I want us to be super careful when we use the language hard worker, because, I actually keep an image of folks working in cotton fields on my office wall, but in the context of relative privilege. And I just want to point out that when you talk about work-life balance and being a hard worker, the moms who don't have health care, who are working on, I understand that. But we don't call them hard workers. We call them failures. We call them people who are sucking off the system. No, really, y'all do. That is really what you guys do.
At free speech, the University of Michigan is spending $16,000 to implement a new inclusive language campaign on campus. From now on, words like crazy, illegal, alien, ghetto, and gypped will be off limits. Why? Because they're considered offensive.
Right. Now, don't think that you can call this guy right here or this guy right here a husband, because there's a new move right now. Amend the Code for Marriage Equality Act is now going to ask that those words be banned. Representative Lois Capps out of California said this: "Our values as a country are reflected in our laws. I authored this bill because it is imperative that our federal code reflect the equality of all."
24 Democrats already behind her on this. Do you believe that?
A bias-free language guide on the UNH website. Instead of senior citizen, the preferred language according to the guide is people of advanced age. Instead of overweight or obese, the PC term is people of size. Describing someone as rich doesn't work either. Instead, it's a person of material wealth. And here's the one that's really burning hides: the term American, replaced by U.S. citizen or resident.
North Americans often use American, which usually, depending on the context, fails to recognize South America. The school now recommends using resident of the U.S. or U.S. citizen instead.
If it doesn't represent university policy, it shouldn't be on the university website. It's offensive, it's divisive, it's ludicrous. It is a national embarrassment. It is a national embarrassment. It is a national embarrassment. Embarrassment.
Crazy, insane, retard, gay, tranny, gypped, illegal, alien, fag, ghetto, and raghead. Freshman, American, husband, wife, male, female, senior citizens, elders, overweight, obese, rich, bossy, hard worker. 2. To is a word to ban when applied to women. Ironically, even the term politically correct is not politically correct to speak. One could probably argue rationally that slurs and derogatories like nigger, fag, tranny, or raghead should not be spoken in public spheres. Yet, can one say the same on less offensive terms like crazy, ghetto, and obese? Or even completely benign words like rich, husband, female, hard worker, American? If such words could be deemed as offensive, then all words are potentially offensive. And the reason is, if you think about it, the offense is not taken from the words themselves, as they inherently not meant to cause offense. Words like male or hard worker or American. But the offense is actually taken by the personal association of the offended. For many people, the term hard worker is associated with a positive thing, and to others...
But I want us to be super careful when we use the language hard worker.
While there are words that are meant to cause offense, like nigger, there are words that are offending. But it's not the words themselves which are offensive, it's the personal experience, the association one makes with such blatantly innocuous terms. Hence, any word could be associated with an offensive thought. Any word you can think of. And that is enough for some individuals to demand we remove scores of words from our public discourse, and even better, from the dictionary and human consciousness. If it's not enough to ban words, phrases are also a target. Unlike words, phrases convey ideas. Phrases like, I want to die, that test raped me, that's so gay, that's so white, you people. And here are some phrases that, according to political correctness, are not to be spoken to minorities. Where are you from? Where are you born? You speak good English. Teach me your language. You're a credit to your race. You're so articulate. America is a melting pot. I don't see color. There's only one race, the human race. I'm not racist. I believe that the most qualified person should get the job. Why are you so loud? Why are you so quiet? Everybody can succeed. On top of that, we can ban other things as well that might be associated with offense. Banning spelling and grammar corrections. Banning books and academic material. Ban the teaching of rape laws in law schools, because they are too triggering. Imagine that. No lawyer would learn rape laws just because the mentioning of the term rape is too harsh for some to hear. Banning statues of men. Banning plays like the Vagina Monologue. Banning small talk and the commemorating of the Holocaust. Wearing a turban for a Halloween costume. And burritos. The list goes on, and there's no end in sight. Everything could be associated with a bad thing, so everything needs to be under the scrutiny of political correctness. Now, some of you might think, well, this is just a fad, a trend that will fade away. However, some of you may have noticed where this fad is coming from. It didn't spontaneously emerge from the general public, from teenagers. It comes from academia, and from the political mindset of the progressive left. A cornerstone of that was in 1970, where the term microaggression was invented to describe the mundane racial innuendos black people in the US experience from white people, later to be co-opted by feminists, and later to all kinds of groups. A term as harmless as "where are you from" to a minority is a form of microaggression. This is just one example of what comes out of academia. There are many more.
Just the title of his book was provocative enough. It's okay to leave the plantation. It's about economic freedom, the new Underground Railroad.
By hanging a flyer in the Multicultural Center, Steve began an 18-month odyssey that wound up in federal court.
One of the students in there recognized the flyer. She confronted Steve and basically told him to take his flyer and go, and if he refused to do so, she would call the police.
That flyer is offensive, and we have a right to not be offended.
What was her objection?
The use of the word plantation.
I tried to explain to him that this was the title of his book.
At 91% of these schools, students could find themselves punished simply for saying what's on their minds.
Anything which is intimidating, which is going to poison the campus environment, can't be allowed.
If a person has their feelings hurt, they will say they've been harassed. If a person feels offended, they will say they've been harassed.
I was harassed and intimidated by that op-ed, by that cartoon.
If you're offended by it, that's implicitly considered harassment.
They don't want to be known as a harasser, so they go away quietly. It's a very clever way of implementing a speech code.
Over the years, speech codes have been used to prohibit some rather innocuous behavior. Brown University banned speech that might make someone feel angry, impotent, or disenfranchised. Colby College outlawed anything that could lead to a loss of self-esteem. Be careful who you turn down for a date. Suggestive looks were banned at Bryn Mawr. Haverford College prohibited unwelcome flirtations, and UConn banned inappropriate laughter. And at West Virginia University, students were told not to use the terms boyfriend or girlfriend. The school says those words are too gender-specific. Instead, lover and partner are preferred.
The truth truly is stranger than fiction. You could not make some of this stuff.
In other words, it is not another harmless trend that we hear on the lighter side of the news. It became policy, and it is a political agenda. It is an ideology. It becomes more and more prevalent because students are indoctrinated and are forced to exercise this ideology.
When you use language that isn't sensitive, you're enforcing stereotypes and promoting a history of violence and oppression.
That exam was so hard. Can you believe they put stuff on it that we didn't even talk about in class?
I know, I hate being raped by exams.
I'm so depressed about it. Why are guys so bipolar all the time? It's crazy.
What did you say I didn't get? What are you, deaf?
I'm so sorry. I'm going to be late for dinner again because I have to study for my exam. Are you serious? It's so gay. You did that last week.
That's how you do a binomial series.
I'm still not getting it. You think you could do that again?
God, are you retarded?
No, and that's not really the word that you should use when you really mean something else.
If you're using offensive and insensitive language, consider cutting out words that can cause real damage.
If you see or hear someone using offensive and insensitive language, report it at purdue.edu/LGBTQ, anonymously or with your name.
Think before you speak.
And now this ideology is permeating high schools and elementary schools in a form of sensitivity classes and feminist classes, where they are indoctrinating young minds with the feminist theory.
My name is Ileana Jimenez, and I'm a feminist teacher at Elizabeth Irwin High School. For my own purposes as a queer woman of color in the classroom, all these things inform who I am, and I can't separate that out when I walk into the classroom.
They are indoctrinating young minds with the feminist theory, which I guess most of you have no idea what it means or where it stems from. The indoctrination of political correctness begins at an early age. How early can it begin? Well, recently scientists discovered how to manipulate a young child's mind to reverse their alleged racial bias, formed when they spent too much time as babies with their own kind, and not exposed to other races and minorities. Obviously, this is a problem that should be treated from infancy. It is not enough that they grow in a tolerant environment, where they can eventually interact with other people. Instead, it is possible to condition their brains with a Pavlovian-like mental technique. I guess that some of you think that this specific method is harmless, and the goal is noble. Yet if you think about it, it is really disturbing that we should allow such methods to educate very young children.